We're live. Boom. Food Service Power Plant Network. Yo, we made it. We're at the end of a year. In some ways, I'm sure for many, it was amazing and incredible. And I was just talking to Ari a minute ago. Forget his 2 words. He'll share them with us. But it was like incredible, amazing, and crazy at the same time. Those aren't their words, but unique and different. And I'm sure it was for you and it was for me. But guess what? You made it. And there's a lot to be proud of in that. And tonight we're coming back for what is always my favorite night of the week, because we get to share a conversation with an industry leader. And tonight, I've got to tell you, perhaps the best conversation we've ever had, and maybe anyone's ever having Ari Cantor on tonight. This might be the best live interview conversation you've ever seen, because Ari is unbelievable. And he every time I talk to this guy, I smile and I laugh. I represented Ari at Insinger like 10 years ago when I was a rep, actually. And we met each other back then, and he was friends with my partners and all this kind of stuff. And it's so fun to reconnect and to have had him in the Food Service Power Plant Network. Listen, as always, get ready to smile, because we're going to do some of that. I would encourage you to grab a notepad and pen, because inevitably there's going to be parts of Ari's story that will be beneficial to you. The whole point of these conversations is that success leaves clues. Ari's in a cool position in the industry where he gets to lead, and he gets to think and strategize and innovate and be in a role like that. And you don't end up in that position without working hard and learning things and failing along the way and trying new stuff and all these things. And his experiences are for all of us. And we can incorporate some of these things into our own lives in moments where we want to learn how to lead better, innovate more, whatever that is. Ari's a member of NAFA, a member of MASI, all these fun things. And he generally makes everyone he comes in contact with smile, which is an incredible gift to offer, including me. So get ready for the last conversation of 2021 and what inevitably will be the most fun. Ari Cantor, let's find him. Ari!
Yo, what's going on? How you doing there, Mr. Wayne?
Brother, I'm great. I'm even greater to get to spend an hour or so with you tonight, my friend.
Oh, I'm flattered. Thank you very much for having me. Merry Christmas to you and your family, and Happy New Year as well.
Thanks, brother. You as well. How has been? Tell me, so today you're in your offices. It is 8 p.m. Eastern time. Tell me a day in the life of Ari in the office.
So day in the life usually starts anywhere from really early in the morning or sometime after most people are getting ready for lunch. So it varies significantly. Generally I get in, we have an open pit style layout in our front office. So it's kind of like a trading desk. Everyone sits around, communicates. It's very open. And I believe in a flat hierarchy and sort of a flat management structure. So doors are always open. Employees wander in and out of each other's offices. Everyone's chatting. Same thing on the floor as well. So on the factory floor, there's a lot of open movement. Guys are helping one another, taking care of each other. So usually it's a morning production meeting. It's followed by usually morning meetings with individual managers. After that, usually we review sort of any hot items for the day, whether it's a install we're working on, major quotes, anything that's kind of clutch that we need to stay on top of. Usually do a mid-afternoon roundup with some of those key managers. I'll usually do a couple walkthroughs throughout the shop. I usually like to keep an eye on what's coming in and out. So I usually sit with the accounting team, keep an eye on that. And then sometime around 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock, I lock up. And it's usually myself and the engineers that lock up at the end of the day. They tend to get in really early. They tend to stay late, helping us, making sure we just get orders out. And that's that. And sometimes I'll go grab dinner with those guys, or we'll order some food in. So it all depends. Typically, I can be here from 10 hours a day to 15, 16, 17 hours a day. So it all depends. Not saying that's for everyone. That's just me and my craziness. You also got to realize I'm a bachelor. I'm 39, no kids. Insinger is my child, is my baby, is my life. So that's probably why I work bizarre hours. I'm not going home to beautiful wife and kids like you.
Well, I love your passion. I love the energy you put to it. And we're going to talk about that later, because it takes something big in our lives to invest that much energy and that much time and that much commitment, right? You don't give that to something you don't love. And I love that you have it. Look who's in the house. This is our buddy, Kevin Coachman. Kevin from Florida. Yo, brother. Yo. What's up? Someone trying to messenger. Suzanne Suplee is trying to messenger video me. Suzanne, hi.
Hi, Suzanne.
I love it. We both love Suzanne. Okay.
Absolutely.
Ari, so give us, tell us your story. You're the president of Insinger. You didn't come out of the womb that way. And I don't think you intended to be in food service.
No, not in the least.
Hold on. Before we get there,
sure.
The important stuff. My question was going to be that TV back there. How much Madden do you play a day?
You know what? I currently don't have Madden 22. I only have 21. I was hoping that Santa Claus would bring it, but he forgot it in my stocking. Every year I hang up a tube sock and nothing in it. I could because I'm Jewish. It's the same way I know that you've got Patagonia stockings in your house because look at you.
Well, you know what? They're not, but I'm also from Colorado. So you would assume it would be a fair assumption to think that I have Patagonia stockings.
Exactly. And you leave your milk for Santa in an Algene bottle.
You're right. Well played. Here we go. That's what we do. And our friend Rob Connolly's in the house. Rob, boom.
Yo.
One of our favorite people. Here's a really important question before we go in. How much time each day do you spend looking for good memes?
I would say it's between 2 to 3 hours a day at a minimum. I mean, it's not like there's real work to be done. Rob should understand. He runs a fryer empire. He understands that everything tastes better fried, including rubber bands. So yeah, I mean, he's an executive. He understands that life.
It's Madden and memes. I love it. Some of my funniest texts, truly, and I don't know if you have this relationship with Rob, Ari, but my relationship with Rob is it's not totally built by any means, but some of my funniest texts I get ever from anyone are from Rob Connolly.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I love it. Rob, thanks for making me smile and us smile. Marcia, Lee's in the house. Marcia, hey, hi.
How you doing?
Great to see you, Marcia. Okay, Ari, so how'd you end up here? How'd you get into food service? What's your story?
So I am the fifth generation owner operator of Insinger. We are the last independent manufacturer of commercial dishwashers in the US. So there's about 11 to 12 companies that do what we do. Insinger is sort of the last man standing. It's been in my family since 1893, and we've been in Philadelphia since our inception. So that's
what did they make dishwashers out of in 1893?
So the first dishwashers, people kind of are curious, is they were actually giant cast iron bathtubs that had welded plates in between to make tanks to divide it. And the way they worked was you took, in essence, a belt, a leather belt with a gear motor as a drive. You then had connected through a rod, a shaft on the inside, a boat propeller. And then they had an open burner ring underneath that was usually connected to a gas line. And in essence, you boil the water, you agitated it, and then there was a large basket. Dish baskets at the time were wooden. And so you had a mechanism where you could basically lower, just like a fishing reel, lower that basket of glassware into the tub, which was agitating water. And then you pull it back out. So think of it the same way you'd sterilize sort of a baby bottle with a pair of tongs and a glass baby bottle. You put it in boiling water. Same idea. So at the time, it was sort of revolutionary because you had, ironically, things kind of come full circle. You had, yellow fever, you had polio, you had all these different terrible ailments and things that were passing around. And you need a way to properly sterilize ware. And so that was the idea behind it. That later evolved into actual washing systems where you had nozzles and pumps and things like that. So kind of going full circle again, on Christmas Eve of 1935, Insinger patented the first stainless steel dishwasher, as well as the first modular stainless steel dishwasher. So that was kind of revolutionary because stainless steel was a new alloy in the 1930s. And it was a way to reduce sort of the gross tonnage of ships and other things, which I'll get to a little bit later with our relationship with the Navy. But going back to me, I sort of grew up in the business, but not really. My father was fourth generation. He's retired. My grandfather, Len, his father was third generation. They worked together for many years. And I spent my summers starting at age 16, sort of working in the shop, doing everything from pulling inventory to helping out on the factory floor. By the time I was 18 or 19, I was out doing local service calls, going everywhere from a local prison to a mom and pop restaurant to a hotel, and repairing warewashing equipment, wearing service blues and everything else. And I guess the way I kind of came to the business was sort of an odd situation. So I graduated from Cornell in 2005, and I was in the hotel school at Cornell.
Okay.
And so my passion was really hospitality, and I thought maybe I would do something in the restaurant world, not necessarily manufacturing. And around the time I graduated, I had a job offer with Google in California to work on the Gmail team. And I had a job at Goldman Sachs to work in their investment banking group that did hospitality banking. I had a girlfriend at the time, a lovely Jewish girl from Mexico City. She was already in New York. Guess where I decided to go? So instead of pre-IPO Google, I decided to go to Goldman Sachs and work 90, 100 hours a week. And within my first 6 to 8 weeks of being in New York, we broke up. I was working crazy hours and it was very different. So my work consisted of writing offering memorandums on behalf of high net worth individual institutional funds. So we would buy and sell hotels and resorts in excess of $100 million. So I worked on some very cool projects, worked with some really neat clients. And about a year into the firm, I met a woman who was a partner, and she offered me an opportunity to go work in sales and trading. And she said, you're very funny. I heard you have a mouth. You'd be perfect for sales and trading. Stop wasting your time doing pitch books. And I said, sure. And at the time, I didn't think it was a real offer, and it turned out it was a real offer. So I then worked on the stock loan desk at Goldman Sachs. So what I did was I actually worked at a team of about 45, 50 people. And what we did is we rented stock to people. So if you're familiar with buying and selling stock, if you short shares, you're actually required to have that physical asset on hand. So there is an industry related to renting of stock to hedge funds and institutional investors to cover their position until they make delivery at a future date in the future. So basically, I was working on some of the craziest, most insane equities that you could think of and working with hedging strategies. So when hedge funds hedge themselves, we actually would help develop a lot of the strategies. So we did block trades. So nothing smaller than 1 million shares of a specific entity. And then the world came crashing to a halt in 2008. So at that point, you had the mortgage crisis that kind of hit the financial world. Different people at different groups were starting to be laid off. I made it through the first round, the second, the third round. I remember I went to meet some friends for dinner one night, and I watched people walking out of Lehman Brothers with sort of, copy paper boxes of their belongings. And I figured, okay, my time's coming. I don't know when. About a few weeks later, that same woman who was a partner in the firm approached me and said, hey, look, you're probably going to get laid off soon. It's going to be based on tenure, not experience. You're low man on the totem pole. Take this as an opportunity to go do something else. They're going to give you a nice severance package, whatever. Think about what you want to do. So lo and behold, I get the call. They couldn't have been nicer at the firm. Very, very nice package was given to me and some of my coworkers. And I figured I was just going to kind of lay low and go to business school. A few days later, we had a fire here at Insinger. We lost about a third of our manufacturing facility. And so a day after that, my grandfather, Len, my father's father, passed away unexpectedly. Wow. So I decided it was kind of the right move, since I didn't really have a job in New York and I wasn't sure what I was going to do next, to sort of come home. I rejoined Insinger, basically helping out in the accounting department, working with the insurance settlement a little bit, helping my father out in some special projects. And lo and behold, I kind of a year later, I said, do I really want to go to business school? Do I really want to go back to Wall Street? I just had a greater sense of accomplishment here. I really enjoyed the family environment. It wasn't the pressure and sort of the dog eat dog of Wall Street. And that's that. So I stayed here and kind of worked my way up. And then 2014, I became president and my father retired.
Wow. Ari, what a story, man.
Yeah. It's a little different.
Well, I love that sense of, well, before I go there, here's I'll go there. I love the sense that you came there was a need. They needed you to some degree, right?
Sure.
And there was an immediate opportunity for you to add value into something that meant a lot, because it was the family business. You were helping out your dad. You were helping out, family, a part of this thing. And I love that it afforded you just a different experience.
Sure.
And a way to add value in a really cool new way.
Definitely. Thank you. I think a lot of it is from pretty much 2008, 2009 up until maybe 2012. I was sort of Insinger's utility infielder, right? So I worked in different departments, right? I worked on the tech support desk. I worked in accounting, was VP of sales for some time. You name it, I've done it at the business. I've, worked on the manufacturing floor. I've supervised the manufacturing floor. I think part of that was great because it gave me a very well-rounded basis for what I do now. So there's a certain empathy to everyone in the business and what they've done and what their duties are. And everyone at this company has a role, and that role is important, right? So whether or not, they're operating a press brake, bending metal, to someone that's answering the phones in customer service, they all have a purpose and a meaning here. And it's important to understand that.
Ari, I love it. Here's a great question. This is our buddy Charlie Cirado from NAFA. I love the dishwashing answers you post. Where do the questions come from, and how do you arrive at the answers? Charlie, yo, brother, and great question.
What's going on, big man, big C man? So it's sort of bizarre if I tell you. Some of it are employees, some of them are employees' kids who ask funny questions. Sometimes it's customers who will shoot us messages on Facebook Messenger. We get stuff on Instagram every now and then. So it comes from, I guess, sort of a mixed bag. And it's amazing how the Ask Me Anythings, or we do dishwashing questions, I guess some people find them very funny. We just try to have fun with it, and people interact. So it's a great way to just reach out to people with something as simple and silly as, I guess, washing dishes.
I think it's great because they're relatable, by the way. Those are really good videos.
Thank you.
I like, Charlie's right. Like, they're good. Like, I want to watch them. I want to keep watching them. They're not super long. They're fun. You're an engaging presence.
Thank you.
And you'll tackle darn near anything. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. And we have a great creative team. There's a gentleman named Matt Weisbecker, who's our marketing manager. And so he puts all that stuff together. So he's done a lot this year to just sort of improve, I guess, our recognition, our position in terms of just being active on social media.
Really well done. It matters. Hey, from Kansas, this is our buddy Taz.
What's up, Taz? Oh,
what's up, Taz, buddy? Marcia, awesome spin on adding to the family business, but getting out there and living first.
Yes. So ironically, if you talk to my father, he had no desire for me or my sister to go into the family business. My sister's an attorney, so she lives in Miami. I'm sort of the only member of the family that's come back to the family business. I have cousins, none of which have any involvement or interest in the business. I have an uncle, he's my landlord, but again, no involvement in the business. One of the big things for my father was to make sure that I went out and tried something on my own so that I could fail on my own. And I think a big part of that for him was, it's better that you fail with somebody else's money in somebody else's business environment. And at the same time, there's a huge amount of just being your own person, right? Not being in the cloud of the boss's kid or something like that, where the interactions might be a little bit different. Although I think if you talk to a lot of the employees here, they'll tell you that, with me, what you see is what you get. And I try to be just a very humble, laid back guy with them. And certainly I don't expect any sort of special treatment or anything like that from them. And they're sure to roast me and make fun of me for that reason.
I think it's a great way to go about it. Our stories are like oddly similar. My dad was the same way. He never pushed my sister and I. Mm-hmm. I was a teacher before I came back in, oddly enough, in 2008, right about when you did. And I appreciate that there wasn't a bunch of, hey, you really need to do this, or this is what the family does. And it gives you a lot of freedom. Suzanne's going to think of a stumper question. I can't wait for it, Suzanne.
Go for it. I'm ready, Suzanne.
Ari is
from
ready.
The queen of dishes. I'm ready to hear it.
You've said
FSI's nightmare.
Okay, let's talk about this. It wasn't a question, but when we were talking, I don't know, a month ago, right before I blew you off and totally stood you up. Yeah. You had mentioned if you weren't in food service, one of the things you would love to do is stand-up comedy.
Yes.
Tell me when that began. Like, have you just always been someone who really appreciated laughter?
So I've always been really into stand-up comedy in general. Big fan of Richard Pryor. I was a big fan of George Carlin, just sort of these classic comedians. Bill Cosby until the unfortunate recent, issues. And I grew up around that. And my mother and father have a very, very great sense of humor. My mother is actually one of the funniest people I know. I mean, my father is a hoot. My mother has this incredible dry sense of humor. I was actually wasn't so much of a loudmouth in high school. Look, I was a short, kind of nerdy guy. I wanted to go off to college. I wanted to study math. I wanted to go into Wall Street. That was my interest at the time. And then in college, I wound up living with a bunch of athletes my freshman year and became really close buddies with them. And one of the things was these guys were all 6'5", 6'7". One of them went on to play pro football in the NFL, et cetera. So I was like the small, funny Jewish kid. And the joke was they had me there to help them with their homework, right? Like I was going to be the tutor. That's why housing placed me with them. And I realized that all these cute girls would come by and they'd want to hang out with them. They had zero interest in talking to me.
What?
So even though I wasn't big and tough and strong and handsome, I had one thing, and it was my mouth, and it was an Uzi, and it was lock, stock, and ready to go at any given time. And so I just became a master of roasting people. So in the same way I'm making fun of you with your Patagonia stockings and everything else, boom, boom, boom. As soon as you say something, I'll flambe you. I'll literally throw you in a salamander. And people started gravitating towards that, and I could make people laugh. And that became sort of like my secret weapon, where I could go into a group and maybe girls won't look at me, but I can make them laugh, right? And so to an extent, that's sort of become an opening cue where I think people tend to take life a bit too seriously. And I worked with a really cool guy at Goldman, whose name was Walter Valentine, Uncle Wally. And Wally was a career VP, right? Never strove to greatness, happy to be in the middle for his whole career, and did very well. He's very successful. He's now retired. And Wally had a saying, which was, if you ain't laughing, you're not living. So at a time when you're dog eat dog on the phones with people, if you can't crack a joke, you know, what's the point? Like, what's the purpose? Yeah. And it'll eat at you. And so I think that's always been something where I've been able to get people just to relax and kind of put things in perspective. And that's just me. So I guess I sort of came out of that shell my freshman year in college.
I think there is so much value in helping people laugh.
Absolutely.
I mean, it is, you know, the first video I did, I might've been in this shirt. The first video I did when COVID started was on laughter, because it releases, I think it's serotonin in your brain, a happy chemical, and it gives you a better perspective when you can go into something laughing. I remember as a kid, anytime I would get hurt, my dad would crack a joke.
Yes.
And, sometimes cause offense to people listening, but I always knew what he was doing and found humor in it. And there's real gift there.
Look, I have a face that was made for podcasts, not video interviews. I look like, based on my shape, that I review onesies on YouTube. That looks like that's my side hustle. But what I found is, if you can make people laugh, it also puts people at ease, particularly when you're in a buying group conference, right? And you're talking to dealers and they're not familiar, or you're in negotiations, or working with vendors, anything. I think sometimes being able to just put people at ease suddenly opens up the channels. And there's I think a big issue of just maintaining a certain dialogue, a human dialogue with people.
Yeah, I agree. Suzanne, by the way, talking about all the athletes that you were going to help get through college, and now you're going to do their dishes too.
Absolutely. They're all very, very successful. A lot of those buddies of mine, it's actually very cool to see kind of what they've done. One's doing insurance sales now. One is a football coach for a professional college team. Another one played in the league. I mean, it's all sorts of cool stuff. So it's amazing to see how, in 20 years, how things happen and people change. So absolutely. And I will gladly do their dishes. They're all good people.
And same to you in terms of what you've accomplished. Marcia wants to know, where are these videos? Where can you find all the videos the questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to any of our social media, which is at Insinger Machine, you can find it on LinkedIn. You can find it on Facebook, Instagram. And then usually every Friday we do an Ask Me Anything bit, where I'll answer a question or do whatever. We then do a lot of other educational videos. We'll do fun sit downs with people, but you can find that on our YouTube page as well, if you'd like.
Love it, man. Great question, Marcia.
Yeah.
You've described what you do with Insinger as an obsession, dish machines, etc. What is it that makes, you show up anywhere from 6 to 8 in the morning. You're there from 6 to 9 or 10 at night, sometimes 15 hours a day. It takes, to give that much energy, to be obsessed with something the way you are, it takes something really big, a big passion for it. What is it about what you do in your company that makes it an obsession for you?
I think there is really two things. One is sort of the way I was raised, and my parents and their influence in my family. And the other, I think, really relates to some of my formal education in college. So family. So to give you a bit of perspective, Insinger is a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business. My father is a retired officer in the U.S. Army. My grandfather was a retired lieutenant colonel. And Insinger, for those who maybe not are familiar, we are basically the primary spec for the U.S. Navy. So we're aboard 90% of the U.S. Navy surface fleet, subsurface fleet, submarines to aircraft carriers. We're on it. To that extent, the military and a lot of sort of the rules and mentalities that the military has are very much a part of Insinger sort of creed and sort of core. And a great way of describing that is, if you tell someone you're going to do something, you do it. You understand that rank has its privileges, right? There's a reason why somebody sits in a corner office and you don't. There's a reason that everyone has to pay dues. It's all these important things where you feel a sense of obligation towards each other's, but it's not just because of teammates and stuff. It's an obligation to something larger. And, it's that whole idea of, duty, honor, country, God, all those things, right? Although I probably just completely screwed that up. What that I think means for me was when I was asked to help out or contribute, it was a sense of duty, right? I was called to it. I'm going to see it through. And so the nice things about a family business is that, yeah, I can never be fired, but I can also never quit, right? So I don't care how bad it is. I don't care if we're going through the midst of the COVID crisis that hit us in 2020 to dealing with the worst day you've ever had in the office. I'm not allowed to walk out of here and throw in the towel. I can't, right? Because everyone else depends upon me. I sign the paychecks. I sign the checks to the vendors. I talk to the customers. I have to make sure orders get out. And if I don't, then that creates unnecessary burden or harm onto others, right? So there's a reason why you have protocols. There's a reason why you do things. And that was, deeply instilled by my parents who live by a certain moral code. And I think that I grew up sort of understanding it, and it's an unspoken code, and that's something that's very important to me. I think the other thing that hits, which is really important, is going to the hotel school, Cornell, right? So when you walk into the building, there's a very famous quote by E.M. Statler, who was one of the first hoteliers of its day in America. And it says, "Life is service. The one who progresses, who gives his fellow men a little more, a little better service is basically, the one, right? That is your life." And so it's the whole concept of servant leadership. And that's a big part of the culture here at Insinger. So like your first day as a student, that motto is just engraved into your head, right? Of caring for others. And in essence, hospitality, whether it's in food service equipment, actual innkeeping, etc., it really is sort of a science in effect, and that students graduate with a bachelor's of science in hospitality management, in management. Because if you think about it, it's the most human science of all, right? You're caring for strangers, regardless of their socioeconomic status, religion, race, creed, etc., and you're making them feel welcome. And I think that the school forces students not only to have hands-on practical work where you learn quantity cooking or organic chemistry and accounting, but there's actually requirements that you need to work in the summer in the industry, right? So that students have a concept of, I worked in housekeeping, I changed linens, I know what that's like. I was working at Ritz-Carlton, I helped guests, it was an interesting summer, or whatever, that student understands what it's like to interact with someone that's had an awful day on the road. They're in a business hotel, everything went wrong. All they want to do is get to the room and get a club sandwich. By being and working in that hotel at 11 o'clock on a second shift, they understand that. Right. And so I think that to that degree, Insinger's customers are those hospitality operators, right? They're convention centers, hotels, chain restaurants, independent operators. And so in the same way that I serve at the pleasure of the board of directors, which is my father, Alan Wasserstrom, some other industry icons, I also serve at like the pleasure of the clientele. And it's important not only that I serve my family, but I serve those customers. And I have to support the ones that support Insinger, right? I serve the families that work here. And I don't just deliver product, but I have to care for those people because hospitality focuses on the details. And I think that's one thing that makes our industry really unique. And those details matter. And it's no different than being in the military where, again, those details matter. You could do something and hurt someone. You need to obviously do that. And, there's plenty of times where you can talk to customers, a great example. We do a lot of business with Federal Supply in Chicago, and a wonderful design build dealer. They purchased a dishwasher for a customer who needed to get through an inspection at that prison. The warden called up and said, "Yeah, I don't need this $100,000 dishwasher anymore. Come pick it up." And they called me up and they said, "We need to return this." And I said, "Okay." And I didn't even think twice. And the reason why you do that is because they're the customer, right? Is it worth me hurting a relationship for one reason? Is it worth them having a negative impact with relationship with their customer over it? No, but you do certain things and you understand that that's the purpose of it, and that's grown, and it's nominal, and we'll find another use. We'll donate that machine. We'll clean it up. We'll refurbish it, whatever you have to do. But there's certain times where you do things because it's the right thing to do. And I think that kind of is both the hospitality and service education that I was given formally and sort of the informal military, education of officers and what they went through, so it all comes together.
Ari, really beautifully said. Shannon Solomon, service mindset is a gift that you obviously have. Shannon's
thank you so much, Shannon.
Director of Nutrition at Aurora Public Schools out here in Colorado. Suzanne's on board. Praise, thank you for, who is this? Let's see who this is. Thank you. This is Shannon too. Thank you for everything your company does for our country.
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
I'm a big believer that people with high energy today, that there is they know that what they do matters, that they have to feel what's called like a high sense of necessity, I think is what Brendan Burchard calls it, that they're making a difference. And think about it. I mean, the employees you talk about, the customers, the Navy, for crying out loud, who protect our country. There are so many people that you show up for, that I think that inevitably creates an energy and a passion, to your point about the obsession to show up every day with your best. And I feel that energy. I think we all do.
I'll tell you sort of a really good example that comes to mind. I think another sort of metaphor and a story, and that is Insinger never shut down during COVID, not for a day. We stayed open. And the reason was not because of me, but because the employees said, we make sanitation equipment. We have to stay open. Employees volunteered to work OT. They didn't care if I couldn't pay them. They didn't care if they were going to get arrested. The employees said, we need to be here because we are vital to protecting Americans and fellow humans. And what was kind of interesting is, to some extent, some people joke that because of our relationship with the Navy, we're like, the SEAL team of dishwashing, right? We're like the Navy SEALs of food service, where generally speaking, unless you really know who we are, we're kind of hidden in the background. We protect people. Sometimes we will protect them from themselves, like the evil buffet. We will see things through. We work weird hours, and we never ask for anything in return other than you pay the invoice on time. That's generally a nice thing to do.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And in some ways, my role at Insinger, being 39 years old, never married, no children, Insinger is kind of my other half, but it is my child. But I also look at that obsession that some people might see as unhealthy as being no different than any other form of public service, right? We ask police officers and we ask, EMS responders, and we ask police officers, hey, do you do this? We're entrusting them with these duties, but yet, we don't ask anything of them, other than to be there when we need them, right? Mm-hmm. And it was amazing to me that at one point, President Trump sent the Mercy to New York. And she was going to come into New York Harbor full steam ahead. And we got a phone call from the Navy, and it said, we're coming into port. We're probably going to need a couple new dishwashers. Like, how soon can you get this here? And what can we do? And we said, we'll drop everything. Don't ask twice. We're talking about American citizens. We're talking about the Navy. Nobody really knew the extent to what COVID was going to become. And so we built 2 brand new 106-inch dishwashers. We threw them on private trucks, and we had guys volunteering to go up there. And they said, I don't care. If I get sick to help somebody else, that was fine. And our installers, it couldn't have been better. The Navy worked with us and do it, but it was just that sense of it's duty.
Yeah.
And it's something that has resonated with me ever since. And so even the days when I'm feeling it's been tough, or I had a customer upset about something as simple as, a spare part didn't ship on time or something like that, you realize that to everyone in that moment, you have a duty towards them, and there's nothing I can really complain about, in hindsight. So it's amazing the way that the teams here have come together and been so supportive of not just each other, but our customers and our end users.
All right. I love it. And, kudos for you. Suzanne says here, excuse me, you've done a remarkable job keeping the passion in while keeping the ego out. I would say the other thing that it sounds like you've done a remarkable job at is taking your obsession and your passion and that sense of duty, that sense of calling, and transferring it to your team all around you. That there were people volunteering. Listen, we matter right now. This is what needs to happen. We'll do the truck. We're going to come work. It's easy for the president of a company to at times to maintain energy and feel that sense of obligation and purpose and duty and mission. It's a lot harder to get everyone else in the factory or in any company to get that as well. So really well done, Ari.
Thank you. So as a follow-up to Suzanne's comment, which I think that a lot of people can relate to, is so when I worked at Goldman Sachs, I sort of call it as like the Marine Corps boot camp for business, right? You go through a number of training courses, many of which are optional, but they're excellent. You're having some of the best professors in business lecturing to you, or you're having partners that have been at the firm 30, 40 years, lecture. And one of the things I remember was there's sort of two very important creeds during one of the partner lectures. And one was that passion is sort of the eternal enemy of humility, right? Passion is like, you think of someone being a fanatic or crazy. And sometimes passion can get in the way of just being humble, but they can go hand in hand, right? In a sense. And the other thing was that your reputation is your single greatest asset as a business. When you look at the balance sheet, you could have the most money in the world, but if people think that you're crooked, if people think that you won't fulfill your promises, your obligations, what's sort of the point of doing business? And in that extent, we've never burned anyone. To that extent, we've never, done anything that wasn't right. If we wouldn't do it to our own teammates or something, we would certainly never do that to a client or an end user. And I think that also ties back to a little bit of Goldman and my upbringing. So I'm from German and Austrian Jewish immigrants. And very much the perspective was that you maintained a low profile when you came to the US, right? That these Jews that came from sort of Western Europe went to assimilate from day one, right? They want to learn the language. They want to dress the same as everyone else. They want to be absorbed into the community. And one of the things that, is sort of this unspoken thing at Goldman Sachs is partners, and generally you can tell who they've been, where they come from and their background was, they never wear expensive watches, right? They never show off, right? I wear to this day a cheap digital watch, Walmart, Target, $10, right? The whole idea was, if you're wearing sort of an expensive Rolex and you're putting that in somebody's face that says you're charging too much, you're trying to make up for your insecurities. If you're really good at what you do and you're a lovely person to work with and be around and you're generating value for your customers, they know that. They don't need to see you in a flashy suit or an expensive watch or designer shoes to tell them that. And you'll notice that a lot of the partners at Goldman Sachs, in particular at that firm, will wear cheap digital watches, Swatch watches, et cetera, because it speaks to something bigger, right? One of the reasons why Goldman doesn't have the name over the door was like, we don't want to draw attention to ourselves. So if you go to 200 West in New York, there's no signage anywhere that says Goldman Sachs. None. It's like the employees know where they work. They know, on their pay stub where it came from. But again, we don't need to like rub that in people's faces of this is our gigantic tower. Look what we accomplished. No, people who know that that's what they accomplished, right? And it's the same thing with a lot of other businesses where you see people with like very modest signage and all that. Like if you were to talk to the guys at Advanced Tabco, it's a simple office. It's a beautiful office. But again, they don't push in people's faces. Like, what they achieve, that they're, all across the US, they're very successful. But again, their work speaks for itself. And it's, I think, really important. I think too often marketing is a lot of fluff and not a lot of follow through and people trying to appear as if, right? And that's to me, I wear Insinger swag. I would show up to a black tie event dressed like this. I'd have an Insinger bow tie on. I could care less, and I would hope that who I am would speak its volumes,
Ari, I love your recognition of what matters in all of this. It's very easy to lose sight and those false pretenses and bravado and all of these things. And you forget who you are as a person, and that who you are as a person and the way you treat others and do your business and care for the world is ultimately what you'll be judged by. And I love that that. It speaks a lot to who you are. I would just tell you that. Okay, we are getting ready. Okay, we're getting ready for the end of the year. Do you have anything? Are you an end of the year guy that does something, or I don't know if it's goal setting, I don't know if it's planning things. I don't know if you have a thing, but do you have a thing?
I have usually two things. One is what I did today, which is generally I do a year's worth of expenses over the period of a day or two, because it all goes into the magic envelope in the corner. I go, I'll deal with it later. was a $4 sandwich, or it was this. And I go, okay, I should probably do this and get reimbursed for some of that. So before accounting, shoves a number 2 pencil on the side of my head. The other thing I like to do is sort of take stock and think about, where do I want to take the organization next year?
Yeah.
So my father had a mentor named Adolf Gross, and Mr. Gross was a very successful investor. He was best friends with my grandfather, Len. And Adolf had a saying, which was that business is sort of like an oil painting, right? Each week or each day, the painter maybe puts a different brushstroke on it and changes it slightly. So maybe one day, the artist adds a tree. Maybe, they paint a building. Maybe there's a bridge or something like that. And in business, especially family business, each generation sort of adds a different brushstroke, right? So maybe we're going to build a new building, or maybe we're going to buy some new fabrication equipment, or we're going to update the logo, whatever it is. And so it usually gives me a time to decide, what do I want to add to the oil painting next year? And like, what colors do I need? And what brushes do I need? And like, how much time is it going to take to do that? And that's sort of how I kind of plot it out. They're more very abstract in a sense, it may seem, but it's, it's me thinking of, I really want to try something. What resources are we going to need? And how do I budget for that? And that's sort of what we do. Look, the good news is sort of I answer to everyone and I answer to no one. I have a board and I have to get their approval and I have to do things. But at the same time, I don't have the bureaucratic challenges that maybe some of our colleagues have that work in larger companies, which have a very formal process, an important process, but a longer process. So it's, if tomorrow I decide that, what we're going to do is we're going to stop making dishwashers and we're going to start making, potato peelers, boom, it can be done, right? I have to justify that, but it can be done that quickly. And that's something I like to do. So usually I used to go down to Florida, visit my sister and spend some time. My parents have a home down there. With COVID, that's changed things a little bit. But what I might do is maybe take a few days off beginning of the year and just hide out at home, or head out of town somewhere and just take some time to sort of do some rough sketches of what I'm thinking about, and then bring it back to the team. And then we'll go from there.
I love it, man. Do you have any ideas in your head on if you want to add something that feels more like color, or something that feels like an object in that painting of what Insinger is continuing to become?
It's funny. Since I came on as president in 2014, we've been in the process of redesigning the entire product line, soup to nuts. And we sort of started with our highest volume piece, which is the under counter, which we've had an incredible response with. And it's been an amazing team effort, to the door types, the rack conveyors, et cetera, et cetera. I think what I'm looking to do now is make the investments back into our people and our processes that make it easier and better to do what we do. That's a big part of it, the ergonomics, the safety, and all that. The other thing that I'm very focused on right now is also trying to build sort of an apprenticeship program. We have sort of a rough thing in place now, but not a formal program. And what we're finding is that in the community where we operate, there's a shortage of trade programs available. And so we want to do our part to kind of contribute. Whether or not that person stays with us, I could care less. But it's sort of a win-win where we can teach someone some new skills that'll be lifetime skills that they can take and do somewhere else where the city maybe hasn't had the funding to do some of the things that they did in the past. So that's something we're working on now, which is very cool.
All right, I love it. Your acknowledgement and recognition of wanting to contribute and be a part of something bigger than you is really, really fun. By the way, if anyone has a question, you are welcome to ask it. You can type it in, ask Ari, and go for it. Here's a question. You seem to carry a great amount of confidence in what you do. Does it feel that way to you? And has that kind of been part of your story, confidence?
It's funny. Some people would say that people that are really interested in stand-up comedy is because they suffer from deep, dark depression, or people who are overly confident or very insecure. Look, I am and I'm not. And this is sort of a funny answer. I'm kind of a unicorn, right? I'm a unicorn in a sense that there's not a lot of young executives in our industry that probably have as much hands-on experience as I have. We have a lot of salespeople that go into executive leadership, but they have no idea how to use a sheet metal gauge. They have no idea how to use a mill or lathe. They don't know the difference between TIG or MIG welding. I've done those jobs. I know those things. I have some background. And so I feel that, no matter how bad things get, I could always find something. I can always make hay out of something.
Yeah.
At the same time, I figure what I've done and what I try to do speaks for itself in other ways that I can't, right? I'm never going to be the biggest. I'm never going to be the tallest. I'm never going to be the most fit, but I can do what I do, and I do it pretty darn well. And I think that's sort of where my confidence comes from. And I have no problem walking into a room and telling someone why they're ugly, why they're short, why they're fat, why they're good, why they're bad. And I think that once you kind of get comfortable in your own shoes, everything else is just sort of, it's scenic at that point. And so I could probably rub some people the wrong way because of that. Maybe not the most politically correct at times, to be polite, but at the same time, I'm probably the most honest, direct person you might meet. And, I have no problem asking a customer for an order, or telling someone what I'm going to do to make it right, or, making a commitment and bending over backwards, because it's me at the end of the day. And I know that I'll be okay. Right. So I guess it's all relative to who you are and what your responsibilities are.
I love your answer. By the way, Marcia's right. Unicorns are awesome.
Yes.
Boom, preach it. And the unicorn that you represent to me just is I would just tell you, it's very life-giving. From, you recognize that confidence is built to some degree on competence. And, I forget, maybe it was Burchard said, confidence is just walking into any situation and saying, you know what, I can figure this out. One way or another. I think I can figure this out. Not necessarily knowing the answers in the moment, but I can learn, I can study. I've been through things. I've survived risk. Go ahead.
So here's a very good thing. When your father sends you to a correctional center to repair a dishwasher at age 19, there is nothing you're going to experience that could possibly intimidate you. I went to Guantanamo Bay to install flight type dishwashers, right? Like, I was there with some of the most wicked boys this world has ever seen, and with some of the strongest, most amazing men and women in uniform this country has ever seen, right? Try doing something like that and figure you got 5 days to get it done, and that failure is not an option, right? Like, what's the worst thing someone's going to tell me? They don't like my shirt. They hate the fact that everything I own says Insinger on it, that my shoes are a little dirty. I mean, it's relative, right? And I think that there's also a lot of very amazing up and comers in our industry in terms of just executive leadership. Lauren Deacon, Hacko, amazing guy. Andrew Hutner, Kevin Schwartz, Ron, Advanced Hapco, amazing. Josh Egan, San Diego Restaurant Supply. He's completely grown that dealership. Kyle Foreman at Crown, the Selvridis at Federal Supply. Even if you just walk into a place like Clark Restaurant, Webstront, you see the teams there in Lancaster, about an hour and a half from us. Amazing group. Or even Dan Schmidt at Antunes. Daniel is just an amazing person. Who went from the coffee roasting business into a family business, right? So there's plenty of people just like me, that really are brass tacks and get it done every day.
Ari, I love it. This is Lenny. Lenny says, you're a young Rob Cantor. Good luck, and tell him I was asking for him.
Thank you. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I appreciate that. But my father, I'm very fortunate that with Parkinson's disease, he has the neurological disorder, but he still has his wits about him, right? So maybe he has certain physical disabilities, but he can still tell me when I screw up or smack me on the back of the head. So it's nice to be able to have that, and it's something I cherish. And, I think my father was very much like his father, Lenny, and Lenny was like his father. And, you see a lot of that in the family in terms of the dynamics. So I'm very flattered. Thank you. Thank you very much for that compliment.
I think that's awesome. Kevin Coachman, what is that beverage in your coffee mug?
So today's beverage is something we like to refer to as sparkling water, cranberry lime.
Oh, solid. Yeah.
Because, it's the holidays, but I'm also not uncivilized. So I don't drink out of a can. I make these things called dishwashers. So it's delicious in your mug.
Is that what we call people who drink out of cans? Uncivilized.
Absolutely. Uncivilized. Anyone who uses paper goods or sips out of cans is uncivilized. Let me tell you something. All right, let me use an analogy. When you've been to Europe, I assume, yes?
I have.
Okay. How much better is a cup of coffee in the morning, whether you're in Italy or Paris or even a cup of tea in London, out of porcelain? How much more sophisticated and better do you feel about yourself and genteel than when you get like the to-go cup, the little paper cup from, your local convenience store or a chain coffee spot. It's a very different vibe. Or even if you go into Intelligentista coffee, right? And they serve it to you in a beautiful porcelain, right? You're like, this coffee is worth what I'm paying versus tastes like a paper cup. So
I love it. Clearly, you're from the hospitality industry, and these things matter to you. Even though
absolutely,
you're a dishwasher guy, you're in the equipment side. Are you a plate flipper?
I am a plate flipper, and I'll tell you why I'm a plate flipper.
Yeah,
the reason I'm a plate flipper is so back when I was traveling a lot more, as we all were, I love flipping plates for two reasons. I was always curious to see who was kind of on trend when it came to tabletop. The other reason was it's also very interesting to see who's dominant in certain territories.
Yeah.
So you'd be in like Dallas and you're like, oh, this is all Trimark or this is all Tuxton or whatever it is. And you go out to Ohio and you're like, oh, it's Wasserstrom country or, whatever it is, depending on who's got their logos or whatever stamped on the bottom. So it's just interesting. It's the regionality of anything else.
I'm totally with you. I'm a plate flipper, of course. And half the battle is to figure out who's the manufacturer. And then I like to guess who the dealer is.
Yes.
If it's let's say it's like an ABC heavy supplier, then I'm like, oh, okay. Well, in Denver, maybe that was Bar Green, maybe it was Trimark. Like who was it?
And it's interesting to see the growth of private label, both from equipment and tabletop. But my favorite flipping of all is when you go to In-N-Out Burger. I'm sure you've noticed that on the bottom of the inside of the cups or on like the paper bags, there's actually like John 3:16. There's actually little biblical references. So it's always kind of like a fun little, it's like a Snapple fact or it's a fun little Easter egg. So I always think that's kind of cool. No one in our industry does that, but maybe somebody will. Maybe it'll be like, Buy American or, Jason was here, something like that. I have no idea.
I love it. Rich Maliki, by the way, eats his Snickers with a knife and a fork. How do you eat it? With your hands? Because
first of all, Rich is an officer, an executive, and a gentleman. He's also a Seinfeld fan. I like that reference. I usually use white gloves. I like to make sure it's proper and prim, pinky up, and that's the way I eat my candy bars.
I love it.
Fun size only because I am fun size.
You are fun size?
Exactly.
If you, I think I answered this. Are you give me three things. Wait, by the way, this was a Seinfeld reference?
Yes. There's a famous episode where Elaine is working as a personal assistant for a gentleman on like the Upper East Side of New York. And she watches him eat his candy bars with a knife and a fork. And there's a whole question about, this is the bizarre thing. And they're trying to decide if that makes sense because do we eat pizza with a knife and fork or is pizza meant to be eaten with your hands? So it depends. There's a lot of different ways. If you're eating a fine dining restaurant, you might eat it with a knife and fork or if it's too hot. But if you're getting a slice in the city, God forbid you should use a knife and fork. It's, it's a lot of rules. If you're in Italy, no hands, absolutely no hands, unless it's square cut and you're buying it by the gram. That's a whole different thing.
Holy gosh. All right. You are on it, man. God bless it.
That's like shaking hands in different cultures. Which hands do you use and not use, so all depends.
I wonder if now anywhere in the world you go, it's the fist bump. I wonder if people even shake hands anywhere anymore.
So, it was very interesting was talking to some people. It seems like a lot of people are still doing the fist bump. I think some people now they're feeling a bit safer. They're still shaking hands. The other thing that was very bizarre was the first time I went to the Middle East and I met a customer that we'd become close via emails and text messages. We're having conversation. He went to hold my hand. So he went for a walk and he was holding my hand. But that's a sign of appreciation, someone you feel very close with as a friend or a brother. It's very normal. And so it was odd for me at first until somebody kind of explained it. And I was very flattered that somebody had held my hand, but that's a cultural difference, right? So you have to understand where you are on the road and what's going on.
I love it, man. Way to go. I know we're wrapping up. So here's a question for you. If ever there's a young Ari or the next generation, whoever takes over after you, when it's your time to, have a place in Florida and retire and whatever you want to do, whatever that looks like, what do you hope? Have you thought now about your legacy, about what you hope you brought to Insinger in the industry?
So that's a really, really, really interesting question. Look, on one hand, I'd be lying if I told you, to me, I didn't idolize a guy like Luciano Berti, right? Guy starts with one dishwasher company, creates Ollie Group, this massive billion-dollar behemoth. Would I love to be like the Berti family and create, this huge conglomerate? I love to, but there's nothing left to buy. I think there's like Insinger and 3 other companies left, right? So who knows? So I worry about what happens, but at some point there'll be the great sell-off. At least I assume there's going to be, right? When you're a smaller, more niche aspect of the industry, I don't necessarily get the same recognition that maybe some of the bigger guys get. I'm not Middle B. I'm not Ollie, right? And so Tim Fitzgerald is an incredible executive, a brilliant executive. Alberto Zanata of Electrolux Professional, incredible executive, right? They've accomplished a lot, but they're doing things on a bigger scale. So they tend to be more in the limelight. And I guess where I joke about being sort of the SEAL Team 6 of sanitation, I've kind of gotten very comfortable with I don't get all the awards and I'm not invited into every buying group. I don't do everything, but that's kind of been a way to create an identity for myself and something that's been very important to me. And so my concern at the end of the day is, and for my legacy is, did I do right for our customers first and foremost? Have I done right, or did I do right for our employees while they worked here? And most importantly, did I do right by my family, right? Because I have the weight of the duty, because what I do supports a lot of people, not just my family, but the families of Insinger. And, it's fascinating to see all the things, but as much as I'd love to take some really big risks, that's Cantor family money. And that's very different than when it's shareholder money, right? And so my sense of duty and obligation is making sure that nobody starves. And if there's anyone who doesn't eat, I'm the first one who forgoes it, right? If things are slow, I'm the first one that takes a pay cut. I'm the first one that's eating ramen noodles, because those families have a right to eat. And it's different. I may not ever be elected to NAFM president. My grandfather Len was many, many years ago. But I'm very active with FEMA, which is sort of the Quill and Dagger Society of food equipment, if you're not familiar. And those are the last independent manufacturers. They're sort of a subset of NAFM, and it's a group of about 12 manufacturers. And we meet twice a year, and we sort of share best practices, but none of us are competing companies. So it's companies like Hacko, it's Insinger, it's AJ Antunes, was Montague until the recent acquisition, EMI, Advanced Tabco, et cetera, Franke. But again, I know where I stand with those people and that group, and that sort of created very much a sense of, accomplishment, success, and working with them. And those people have mentored me in a lot of ways. And so, again, I'm probably never going to be, on the front page of an industry trade journal. I could be wrong. I'm never going to be featured next to the Dealer of the Year expose, but that's okay. Right. But the fact that I've done something to help those people, that's very fulfilling. Right. And that's something I kind of have come to terms with in a sense.
Well, I would just tell you, listening to your story tonight, and I didn't know all of what you shared. I didn't even know a lot of it. Ari,
that's okay. You were only my rep for like 15 years. Don't worry about it, Jason.
I was like,
I don't even think you knew our products, but I never held it against you. We were the tabletop guy. That's Bobby Moshe's problem.
Bobby dealt with it.
Bobby.
But yeah, I hope Bobby's watching. I think he got off Facebook.
No. Bobby's too busy playing tennis or doing something or doing calisthenics.
Oh yeah, Bobby playing tennis.
Yeah. You never know.
I would just tell you that hearing your story and your obsession, I understand why you have it. I understand your passion. I understand your energy, and you're doing really big things, brother.
Thank you.
Not just in your company, but it's evident that you are. But for our country, with the customers you serve, for your clients, that servant leadership is abundantly clear and shines through. And you might find yourself on the cover of a magazine or something like that sooner than you think, because it's not the flair. I think our industry is moving to a place where we recognize that it's not the fireworks and, that kind of stuff that makes someone significant.
I think that's been one of the most amazing things to me about COVID. Tom Campion, who's sort of the executive chairman, Franke Foodservice and a former NAFM president, He and I are very close buddies. He actually, Frankie, the division that his family ran was actually in Philly in the burbs, not far from where I lived for many, many years. And Tom's also been kind of like a Dutch uncle to me in a way. And one of the things that Tom said to me was that COVID is nothing more than the great accelerator, right? That we're just moving ahead. It wasn't necessarily a setback, right? So online retail, it was moving that way. Work from home, flex schedules, it was going to happen, right? Reconsidering, what people value is all that. And so from an economic standpoint, what's happening in the industry is kind of heartbreaking and fascinating, right? Dealers who used to rely on manufacturers for quick ship inventory, now they're considering making major investments, right? Or using cash to stock those products. I'm sure you have those conversations all the time. Manufacturers who are relying upon existing suppliers, they're actively looking for new vendors and they're trying to solve production delays. And when I never thought I could buy this relay from this company instead of that company, right? Guys like Rich in the service industry, Maliki or Parson, et cetera, are going, if I can't get it from one, I still got customers down. So do we look at, other ways to source components? Dealers are selling a smaller volume of goods, but now they're increasing their margins to maintain that profitability, right? So people are selling on availability for the first time rather than price or brand name, which is, a great thing in a sense. And end users that are unable to source certain food products or equipment, they're revising their menus. They're considering products and brands they never touched before. They're developing creative solutions. Companies like Cal Miller creating those products for those operators. And honestly, it's amazing, right? That's innovation at its core. And it's something I love. And a great example is going back to that coffee example, right? You've got a lot of chains that are, previously served on disposables. They can't reliably source those things. And so now we're getting calls from chains going, we're thinking about serving on, melamine, or we're thinking about serving on Corel or whatever. It's good for the environment. It reduces our costs. We can now charge $10 for a hamburger instead of $6 for a hamburger. Smart business is good business. And so you're seeing all that. So at the end of the day, positive things come from what you make of it. And a lot of it is just your attitude and your perspective,
I love your attitude and your perspective. Marcia, I've enjoyed learning about you and your company. This is what it's all about. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Marcia. If any of you would like a complimentary Insinger mug so you two can be civilized, please hit me up in Facebook Messenger. I'd be happy to send it to you. Always got tons of Insinger swag, the House of Swag. You need a blanket, a pillow that says Insinger on it, a teddy bear, chapstick. I got it. Just let us know. We'll send you some swag.
Outstanding. I will take a mug. And if you ever need like a Colorado flannel, like a plaid flannel, or you need a Nalgene, you just call me.
Well, I was going to ask for some corduroy underoos because I hear that's what you wear in Colorado to keep you warm. But I actually have a very special gift for you, Jason. In honor of our discussion tonight, I have a little sweatshirt and it says,
oh my gosh,
manufacturing makes America strong with the Insinger logo. So this is something we just gave out to all the guys in the shop. So you're part of the team. So it's got the Insinger logo, of course, on the front. So we'll send it to you. Perfect for après-ski. So Ari, send me text me your address. I'll make sure I'll drop in the mail for you tomorrow.
Man, I'm really grateful. That's
always,
really
man. I appreciate it.
I'm thankful for that. Suzanne, hold on. Here we go. You did a great job tonight, Ari. Truly enjoyed it. Very insightful. And of course, you're a hoot. Great to see your knowledge
Suzanne.
Shine.
Suzanne is a very, very insightful, wise woman, and she's a lot of fun to chat with. So anyone who hasn't had the pleasure of chatting with Suzanne, pick up the phone, give her a call. If there's anything you want to know about specking and food equipment and CAD and anything else, she is just a reference librarian of knowledge. She's awesome.
She knows it. Suzanne, I think you have fun stuff coming. Glenn Lawless, Ari B, don't sell yourself short. You're a great example of humility. Great job tonight. The other
Thank you so much, Glenn. I appreciate it. It means a lot coming from Glenn.
Yeah, Glenn, yo, brother, and I would agree. You're doing really big things. And by the way, I think you've got a face for video. You're a good looking man, Ari.
I appreciate that. My dating profile would say otherwise right now. It's a little dry, but my buddy Seth Wasserstrom's going to try and set me up with some of his wife friends, what we call making a shiddock in Yiddish, making a match. Maybe 2022 is year of Fiddler on the Roof for Ari. Maybe it's Dishwasher on the Roof. I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
I love it. Listen, real quick. You mean a lot to a lot of people.
Oh, and, thank you.
Speaking of Seth Wasserstrom, I connected with Seth, and there's a couple of things that some of your friends want you to know.
That's very sweet.
I friggin' love it. Seth Wasserstrom, Ari is super innovative. I love chatting with him about both of our family business dynamics. It always leads to fun conversations. Ari is super compassionate about what he does and the people he works with, and I greatly admire that in him. I'm lucky to be able to call Ari a friend.
That was Seth?
What's that?
That was all Seth?
Yeah, I'm not done.
That's unbelievable. He still owes me $20, but keep going. This is unbelievable.
$20 in another sentence.
Wow.
I am lucky to be able to call Ari a friend because he can be there as a sounding board for the more serious things. And yet he knows how to let loose and show his great sense of humor in the fun times as well.
That's very sweet. That's very kind.
And Seth, if you're watching, pay the man his $20.
It's either that or the Wasserstrom popcorn tin, one of the two. I didn't get it this Christmas. It wasn't very COVID friendly, but I told Seth, I said, make some Jiffy Pop and put them in individual Ziploc bags and send it out to the customers. It's not that hard to do. They have an army of people at Wasserstrom. Just ask Brad. They could do this.
I love it. Rich Maliki. Ari, just like me, is a family businessman. He is genuine. He is hardworking. He cares about his employees and the industry at large. I would agree. Not to mention the best Guy Fieri impression I've seen.
Thank you, Rich.
Keep hustling, Ari. You're the man. Ari, Guy Fieri impression. Can you go? Can you just make it happen?
I mean, it was our little Halloween thing. I can't just do it on command, but if you go to our social media, you can see my Guy Fieri Halloween costume.
Oh, that's
so we did diners, drive-ins, and dishwashers.
That was
welcome
awesome.
to cleaning country. But you know what? That means a lot for Rich, and he's done a lot. I know, really trying to bring our very antiquated industry into sort of the modern era. Yep. And I think everything that Rich does is really for the positive. And, you know, I deeply respect him, and I think he's done a great job, and he's grown his business through acquisitions. And I know the guys that work for him, some of them used to work for me, love him. And they really can't think of a better boss to have. So it's great to hear that. It's very kind.
All right. Rich, lots of love from both of us, brother. Deirdre Flynn.
Oh, no.
It's so fun and rewarding to see a fifth generation and proud NAFM member business in Ari's hands. Having had the opportunity to work with his grandfather.
This is true.
A former NAFM president, and his dad, a former NAFM board member. I heard lots of stories from his younger years and was delighted when he made the jump into the business. He's the little brother you finally get to work with.
Oh, that's very cool.
His enthusiasm and his passion for the industry, for serving customers and building relationships, is evident in everything he does. And it's exciting to witness what he's building at Insinger and the mark he'll make in the industry. And you've got to love his sense of humor too.
Thank you. That's very sweet. Sweet D, who I love deeply. And every year I get the Christmas card with a picture, and I can't believe how much her daughter's grown. But D, you know what? She's like the matriarch, the queen Elizabeth, if you will, of our industry, where she's solid as a rock. Yeah. She is the most fair, honest, thoughtful, caring person I know. And I think there's very few people that could do what she does. And it takes her personality to do that. So, D, I love you deeply. She's always been there for me, even as a sounding board, but more importantly, she just calls and checks in sometimes. And she's great the way she does with everyone. And, and I think there's few people, you know, male or female, that could do what she does. And, you know, that's why she may be the longest serving person in that role in the history of the industry. I mean, but she's excellent at what she does, and she's just an amazing person.
I second all of that. Deirdre, well done. And thanks for caring for the industry well. And both Ari and I included in that. Lastly, our buddy Rob Connolly. Here's what I know. Whenever I am with Ari or texting Ari or on a phone call with Ari, here is what I know will happen. I will laugh a lot, and I will learn stuff. He is the Mary Poppins of our industry.
The Mary Pop? I don't even know what that means. What does that mean, Rob?
I love it, though. Here we go. He loves to give you a spoonful of sugar / laughter with his medicine.
Oh, absolutely. Okay.
And as a matter of fact, I'm going to start calling him Mary Poppins. I love it. He is a funny guy, but he is not just a funny guy. He is smart and he is aware and can see a bigger picture. So listen and laugh and learn. Love you, Ari. I mean, Mary.
That is very sweet. Please don't call me Mary Poppins. I may be short, but I will bounce you like a sumo wrestler. Rob, I love, because even with those glasses, I don't know if he told you, his next Tesla that he's going to order comes with a prescription windshield because he's slowly going blind. So, Rob, you know what? Rob is an amazing person, because to run an ESOP is a very hard task, but it's one of the most humble tasks you could do in our industry. And, you know, Rob has always been just a cool, honest, down to earth guy with me, but he treats me no different than he would treat anyone else. Yeah. He would treat a server in a restaurant the same way he treats an employee, the same way he would treat one of his daughters, although his daughters are a little bit better because they're his daughters. But, you know, he's just a good guy in a sense. And again, like, you just can't find him. You know, he's a rare gem in the industry, and it's awesome that he's with us and he does what he does. And, you know, anytime you have a question or you want to go to the factory and have a tour, he just opens up his doors to people. So he's a good guy. I love his family. His daughters are the best. His wife is fantastic. And I get all my information about Catholicism from watching the young Pope and the new Pope. So when I converse with Rob, that's how I understand anything to do with his religious beliefs. But, you know, it seemed John Malkovich, Jew law, same thing, you know.
I love it, Ari. I love your relationships with people. They're so real. And Rob, well done leading NAFM these last couple of years. Yes. In the midst of you and Deirdre, in the midst of the nuttiness of our world, keeping people together, continuing to serve.
Rob asked me if I could impeach him when COVID hit, just so he wouldn't have to serve throughout the rest of this. And I said, look, until we know about a Russian scandal, there's nothing I can do, President Connolly. I'm happy to be his advisor and be by his side, but I said, we're not letting that happen. We need your leadership right now. So sorry, Rob, but you did a good job. You held through.
You did great, Rob. You did great
for it.
Kevin Coachman, thanks so much for tonight. Happy, healthy New Year to the Foodservice Power Plant. Listen,
thank you.
What a year. We did it, everybody. Ari, look, this was a blast. And
absolutely,
you were an epic way to end our year. And from a conversation standpoint,
I mean, just be honest, you saved the best for last. Number 61.
No doubt about it. You were the best we've ever had this year.
You just delete all the other ones. You know, why bother? We'll just talk weekly. I'll give you life lessons.
And then we're going to figure out what to put on the bottom of mugs. Those Insinger mugs need to have like a little something.
We'll do something.
I love it. I'm in.
For tabletop, please contact Jason at Cal Mill, blah, blah, blah.
Yes. I love it.
I mean, come on.
Foodservice Power Plant Network. Listen, you did it. You made it through another year. We're doing it together. These conversations are my most fun night of the week because we get to laugh and share stories and learn and grow together. Remember, if you are in a spot right now, and I know it's getting kind of weird again out there, and the amount of people who have called us asking for COVID tests in the last like 24 hours is unbelievable. So it's weird. I know some people didn't get to be with families and a whole bunch of stuff. It's all unique. It's all uncomfortable. It's all unfamiliar, and that can be hard at times. Know that we're in it with you. Know that you're not alone in the fact that it's hard and it's different, and it's sad, and at times, but there's also energy and there's also hope, and there's also take Ari's, his visual of writing that canvas of his company and what the next brushstroke wants to be for the next year, and what the next thing on there, the next color. And I think that's true in our lives. Let that be something that brings you some level of hope and energy and excitement right now as you look to next year, whether a goal person, whether you're a whatever it is, dream a little, figure out what that canvas looks like. And what do you dream it could be? What do you hope for your life or your company or your story? And dream big, no limitations. Let that be a part of your energy now. We are going to continue to do this in 2022. And, Happy New Year to you. I hope it.
Happy New Year to you and everyone in the group. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
I love it, brother. Everybody, lots of love from Ari and I to you. Keep laughing, keep smiling. Let's keep doing it together. Happy New Year, everybody. See you soon.
Take care.